I really don't know what to say, Dr. Rasha. Your work here has always been excellent, but speaking to a nameless in his own language, outstanding.
Greetings, Earthlings. Thank you for joining us. We are about to get into a very spoiler-heavy discussion about Picard, Season 1, Episode 3. So if you haven't seen that, now's your warning. We are getting into the spoilers. They're coming for you. If you don't want them, now's the time to click on out of this video. But don't do that. You should stay here and watch it. Joining me today on the bridge, our executive editors here at IGN, Scott Collura, Jim Vejvoda, and my boss, head of video, Corrado Caretto.
I'm just a man.
I say that every time. Okay, so topic number 1. We're getting bits and pieces about what's going on with this grand narrative, not just what Picard's mission is, right? Mm-hmm. Because in his mind, his mission is still pretty small, pretty singular. He wants to save Data's daughter before the Romulans get to her. There's a bigger narrative going on. So my question to all three of you, are we seeing an evil Starfleet?
I mean, I do think that, like, Jean-Luc always sort of stood for, like, the best in Starfleet. And I think that we're seeing that kind of come to a head in this show, right? Like, there's no such thing, or there can be no such thing. And I think that the show is going to continue down this road of principle, right? It's going to continue down the road of, like Picard holds Starfleet to higher standards. And especially after this episode, I think that we're going to see that there might be this weird Romulan faction that might have been in cahoots with some folks in Starfleet that maybe felt like war is a profitable thing, or war is a
I'm going to
good
stop
thing.
you there for a minute. And here's why I think that that's not true. I actually think my theory, and I actually have a theory for once, is that instead of Starfleet being insidious, right? Starfleet is being manipulated. I actually spoke to executive producer Alex Kurtzman on the Picard red carpet the other night, and I asked him this question. I said, is Starfleet evil? Is that what we're looking at? And he says, no, this is not an evil Starfleet. Starfleet just had a bad decision to make. And that is going to make some people wrong. So, but here's why I think that they're being manipulated.
That's a huge bad decision.
Commodore O, who I don't believe is acting in terms of trying to be insidious. I think, again, her secret agent, Peyton List's character, is a secret Romulan. No one in Starfleet is supposed to be Romulan. So they don't. I don't think that they realize they're being manipulated.
That she's a Romulan, or she does know, and they are in cahoots together.
Yes, Starfleet has some secret stuff going on, but I don't necessarily think that they are being evil. I think they're being manipulated.
So and it would actually be, in the tradition of Star Trek, would be Starfleet higher-ups being duped easily. That goes back to the old show.
And also having some, like, zealots in there too that are just like hardliners. I have something I'm wondering about, which is, and I kind of hope it isn't true, but given all the mirror universe stuff that Discovery did, could these be mirror universe people somehow involved?
If all of these shows are connected,
and
that's all. It's all on the
CBS
table.
All Access, right? Isn't there a situation where like Michelle Yeoh's character could kind of show up, or something like that, or some of the Section 31 people. In that way, you kind of tie it in together, your two flagship shows. It would seem like a missed opportunity, but you know, Star Trek has done weirder things. I mean, they had McCoy show up in the very first episode of Next Gen. You didn't need to, but there's always that kind of need to have connective tissue.
And you pointed out that Commodore O is wearing sunglasses at one point, and they established in Discovery that the mirror universe people are light sensitive.
That's interesting. Well, okay, so
I mean, how do we know that?
I like it.
Because she's also they're playing her as such a kind of obviously shady character,
right?
And so I just started thinking, like, mirror universe, or is she like a mirror universe Vulcan?
Right.
You know, I mean, because remember, goatee Spock, not a good guy.
Yeah, she would have a goatee if she was.
And their Starfleet were killing each other, and would do anything.
Again, back to the Borg cube and what's going on there. Obviously, it's a research project. It's all an altruistic mission, but is it really? We get a better look at what's going on there. We find our next TNG legacy character who shows up in this show, Hugh.
Yep.
What was your take on this? When we finally see Hugh, what he's been up to, what he looks like now?
I was surprised, actually. So it's Jonathan Del Arco who played Hugh back on The Next Generation a couple of times, where he was a full Borg, and Picard and his team disconnected him from the collective, but he still looked fully Borg, and he was living among the Borg, and he was going to kind of try to work a revolution from the inside. Now he looks he's been de-Borgified more or less. He just kind of is 7 of 9 in a way. He has
It's got them sexy implants.
Yes, and he's very human in his attitudes, but we don't really learn anything about how he's gotten to this point, except that he seems to be in a position of power on the Borg cube.
It's like we saw him the last time we saw him in TNG.
And now
we see him here, and we want to know what's coming.
Yeah, and the episode, that whole part of the episode really focuses on Soji and her interactions with some other Borg survivors who've been de-Borgified. But Hugh was just kind of there hanging out, like, I'll take you in for an interview with them. But we don't really learn anything about Hugh. So I found that to be,
a little frustrating. I wanted to learn more about his motivations, where he's at.
What's he doing? Is he a good guy or a bad guy? What is he, So I didn't think we really got any of that.
Yeah.
Jim, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for folks who might have forgotten that character, it's not readily apparent, really, kind of who he is.
And if you don't know who that character is,
I mean,
you might be lost.
Well, who is this dude? I did like the sort of almost one flew over the cuckoo's nest thing with they're essentially in quarantine and they cannot. They're basically cannot really go out into a functioning in society.
And that room was all Romulans. They were all Romulans who had been de-Borged.
And I thought that was interesting. I hadn't seen that before,
right.
and there was a lot of pathos there, and it's making you care about some of the Romulans, even as the other ones are very mustache twirly.
I feel like he's actually trying. There's an effort to rehabilitate these ex-Borgs, or it seems like they're trying to rehabilitate these ex-Bs, and that he's bringing in Soji to actually help on a therapeutic level, right? Like she puts her hand on that.
She's Patch Adams, basically.
Yeah, she's and he's marveling at it. So we learn that I think one thing we can infer is that he's sort of providing oversight for this rehabilitation effort. And that there does seem to be an altruistic motive on his part, which I'm assuming just because he's ex-Borg, he came from that.
What do you guys think the Borg? Where's this headed? You said that you think the Borg are coming back.
So I think two things. One, I think we're going to see 7 of 9 come back. I think that we're going to see that they're rehabilitating, but they're in cahoots with the Romulans, who are there to harvest tech, parts, and weapons from the Borg.
And knowledge.
And yeah.
They have knowledge on that shit too.
They're trying to they're tinkering for 2 different reasons, I think. And
it's called reverse assimilation.
Mutually beneficial. And I just, guys, there's it's like playing with a nuclear bomb. Someone's going to press a button, it's going to call the mothership, and they're all going to
come take their stuff back.
It's assimilate. No 5,000 days since assimilation. That's going to reset to 0 soon.
Again, so this is what leads Picard back to space. We already know this. That was kind of set up in episode 2. But in this episode, we see Picard go through the motions and actually assemble his crew. So let's talk about the crew. That's topic number 3. What did you think of the crew? First of all, I have to bring up the captain is a total scoundrel. He's a mix between Han Solo and Wolverine. Go.
I think my favorite member of the crew is actually the captain's EMH doppelganger.
Sure.
It is the same actor, right?
Yeah.
And he's
with the Irish accent.
Yes, with an Irish accent for some
Irish
reason.
accent.
We were saying he's almost like the captain's Alfred.
Yeah,
right?
He's just a butler.
Yes.
He's always offering advice that the captain doesn't listen to, and he's walking around, taking care of his wounds and stuff.
It's like he hates himself.
Ooh. And then we have Alison Pill's characters along for the ride
She's
as well.
the AI expert.
She's the
AI
Tilly.
That's going to be
of the
important.
show.
Yeah.
We should break it down into A-team, which one is B.A. Barrett?
Who's the brains? Who's the muscle? Who's the wild card?
Right.
Who's the face?
But I would.
Captain's the face.
I mean, what do you guys think? I thought Rafi was a little over the top.
Yeah,
She's got demons, guys.
Yeah, I just the so far, and look, this is the first time they're going to work out some of the bugs in this whole thing. Let's face it, a Contra at Farpoint is probably not your best introduction to some of these characters that we now love, but I thought it was very arch. The whole I'm just going to swill. The wine and vape
and wine,
and then the other guy doing his poor man's Wolverine with the cigar and a whiskey, and there's shrapnel on my arm. Will you take that shit out?
They're damaged. They need Jean-Luc to heal them.
No, I'm sorry. It's JL.
Okay, can we just...
Which really annoyed me.
Riker would never.
I was not okay with that.
Did it seem disrespectful to you?
Oh yeah, like only like no one.
CC.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you call him that? He's Admiral to you.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that was just a trope to kind of establish like that they're so tight, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just like my issue with that character specifically wasn't even that, which I thought was atrocious. Like. The man is a title. He's Sir Jean-Luc Picard. But my issue was more so that and I'm sure we're gonna get a backstory, but the way they wrote in the scene with her between the two of them where she's like just coming down on him for like quitting Starfleet and causing her to lose her job, and she's like, "You're rich and you live in the state, and I'm poor, and this is all your fault. And for 20 years, I've just been stewing on this." I'm like, there were like millions of Romulans that were killed, and that's a pretty good reason for him
still
to
alive.
leave.
It's not that bad.
And then the other thing too is like, isn't there no money in Starfleet? Like, how come?
Can't everyone have a vineyard?
Yeah,
if they
there's
want?
no money.
Like what? Yeah.
So explain that to me.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Well, there must not be any money if you can afford a house like on the base of Vasquez Rocks.
Well,
because that would be very
also,
expensive.
that's a great Easter egg that they actually
What is
put
that from,
in
Jim?
Vasquez.
Tell us what that's from.
That is where Kirk and the Gorn fought.
One thing that I wondered was the same question that was actually leveled at Jean-Luc Picard in this episode. If you're going to build the crew, why not go with the classics? Why not call up Worf? Why not call up Riker? Yeah. Why not call up Geordi? And he gives us an answer. And the answer is, I can't ask them to do that because it's me. They'll do it. I can't have them risking their lives. I thought that was such a clutch answer for that moment.
But these other people,
but they're totally dispensable.
Yeah, they're red shirts. Every single one of them.
I'm so sorry that I didn't call you for years, but
you
I'm not calling my other friend.
He does call him JL, so at that point he's like, "You're."
That's why you're going to die.
Starfleet has an established history of having expendable personnel. This is just par for the
red shirts for all of them.
That's right. Guys, final thoughts. Episode 3, where we kind of know what the stakes are. The crew is assembled. Jean-Luc is heading off to go find Data's daughter. What do we think?
Well, so we're in space now. We've got the crew assembled. So we're in a good position. And now we're going to jump. I think the way they're doing this season is the same director did 1 through 3, and they're doing them as, I think Kurtzman said Alex Kurtzman, the producer, said at the premiere that they're doing them as chapters. So like Frakes, I think, is coming in to direct 4 and 5. I think Jonathan Frakes is up next, so he's gonna. So it's almost gonna be like we have to look at these as little chapters.
Mini arcs.
Yeah. So I have high hopes. Frakes is coming in. They're in space. They have a ship. I felt like this episode also injected a little bit of humor with the EMH, which I thought was, things are pretty heavy in this show. So
like the nod, like him looking at the captain's chair and like,
that was great.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful that we're gonna warp out and make it so.
To boldly go where no man has gone before. Jim, what did you think?
I mean, that last moment redeemed a lot of. It redeemed a bit of the show being so sluggish so far. Now we can finally get on the journey. I
have no interest in Picard on Earth.
Well,
None.
I don't want to see any more Earl Grey crap. Like, I get it. He likes Earl Grey. All he's done the first 3 episodes is drink tea, drink wine, and then get a whiskey when his doctor gives him bad news.
Doesn't sound all that bad to me.
I mean, he's basically living like me. But what I'm afraid of is that they're going to start going on these like little side quests. Like, we're on our way there. Oh, there's a distress call. Let's land and help these people and go to this. And it's like,
or is it going to be Rise of Skywalker style, where like we got to go find the key to find the dagger?
I think this raises an interesting point, because if you look at TNG and the way that those episodes worked, yes, there were 2-parters. There were sometimes storylines that would stretch between episodes, but for the most part, it was a one and done kind of situation. Whatever threat they were facing in that episode, for the most part, that's the way TV worked back then, where it would all get wrapped up by the end of the episode.
You lived a lifetime in Inner Light. That was only one episode.
Now we're talking about a grand arc. We're talking about mini arcs. So I think that's something that was established by Discovery in the way that they handled their entire season run. So what do we like that? Is that a cool departure
it depends
from
on what they do with it. I mean, if I'm wasting 3 episodes, it ultimately won't matter to the grand narrative that's supposed to pay off on episode 10. I think the fact that we're bringing in 7 of 9, I mean, she must be more integral to the grand scheme of things than just being a legacy character who shows up and gives them a piece of information. I get the sense that, you know, in terms of this larger Federation or Starfleet and Romulan kind of conspiracy, she could end up being a key that unlocks these things and gives Picard more knowledge than even the bad guys might have at this point. Like there's, at some point the tables will turn. It's just basic kind of narrative storytelling stuff where he'll get an advantage and then the bad guys will come back and yada, yada, yada. And so I'm hoping they just get on with it.
Corrado, you've been the eternal optimist in these conversations. How are you feeling after the end of episode 3?
I totally agree. I'm glad that they're just getting on with the show. I think you probably could have consolidated this all into one episode and like just gotten it started. That being said, you know, every hair on my body stood up when he sat there at the very end and went, engage, right? Like that.
That's what we wanted. That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. And you know, it's those moments of looking to the sky and pondering like his end. And again, I can't help but feel like we're also seeing parallels to Patrick Stewart. Like there are Patrick Stewart moments in there, and that's what I'm like watching for that stuff. So like his final voyage, his goodbye, and all that stuff.
We do have to land the starship, so I'm going to throw it back to our viewers at home. What did you guys think of episode 3? What do you think of the Borg? What do you think of what about Starfleet? Again, I'm going to ask you about Starfleet. Are they evil? Are they being manipulated? What's going on there? And lastly, what do you think of Picard's new crew? And are you excited for his mission that he's going on next? Anyway, now that you are caught up, and thank you for joining us, be sure to check out our video on why 7 of 9 blames Picard for all of this. And while you're at it, be sure to follow and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.